Harry's Wife, part 69.2, Backlash, title removal. I explained in part 68.1 about how Her Majesty the Queen might well utilise an uninvitation from her Platinum Jubilee celebrations as a mean of striking back. But what about the position concerning the titles that both Harry's wife and Harry have? Well, repeatedly it's questioned whether these should be removed, what effect that might well have, how can this be done, and what might be the impact. And we turn to the Express online with an article by Rachel Russell, which headlines, "Queen has more insulting plan for Harry's wife and Harry instead of removing their titles." The Queen could have a more insulting plan for Harry's wife and Prince Harry instead of removing their titles for cashing in on the royal family in the United States, a royal expert has claimed. Since stepping down as senior royals, Harry's wife and Harry can no longer carry out royal engagements, and also lost their military and royal patronages. They also can't use the word royal in their branding, while they carve out a new brand for themselves in the United States. However, the couple still have their Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles, with Harry still keeping his Prince title too. Despite this, they have sparked outrage among royal fans for still making money off the royal name, residual benefit, by repeatedly bashing the monarchy in their recent interviews, smearing assertion of control, prompting calls for the Queen to remove their remaining titles. This would certainly be an option available to Her Majesty. But what would the removal of the title do? Well, first of all, it would wound the narcissist. Status is important to the narcissist, and of course we can see with Harry's wife that she absolutely loves the fact that she has the title of Duchess, because it was one of the things that was utilised on her recent book, The Bench of Stench. Harry's wife, Duchess of Sussex, placed on the front. Be under no illusion as to what she is. Of course, she wants the title, but not the commitment to the family, because it doesn't do what she wants. Elsewhere, she was described as being a maverick when it came to her involvement in the royal family. This is just another word for somebody that doesn't fit in. Why? Nothing to do with her colour, nothing to do with her race, but the simple fact is that she wanted to dictate to a many hundred years old institution how things should be done. With no boundary recognition, operating with a sense of entitlement, no sense of accountability, and of course no emotional empathy for how people would feel about this, she decided that she wanted to dictate terms on repeated occasions to the royal family and the way that it operates. Now, there's always an opportunity for making suggestions as to how things might be improved. An external view often helps in terms of enabling people to understand this is something that could be done and improved. But of course, it's the manner by which one goes about it. And as a mid-range narcissist, it would be done in a passive-aggressive manner with flashes of aggression, making demands, glowering at people, insulting people, temper tantrum when not getting the right way. And of course, Prince Harry will have been receiving end of much of that. The arrogance, of course, of believing that her way is the only way, and as Harry once said, what my wife wants, she gets, demonstrates that mentality. And therefore she came into the royal family and immediately started dictating terms as to how things should be done, in accordance with being a narcissist, because that's the assertion of control. And when people said no, or we don't do it that way, that of course threatened a sense of control. And rather than think, oh, okay, that's the way that they do things here, I ought to respect that because this is a bigger institution than me, Of course, nobody's bigger than the narcissist. We are the world. We are the universe. And therefore, her narcissism said, how dare they tell you it can't be done this way? And causes her to respond either through a direct, indirect, or withdrawal assertion of control. Hence, the disclosures, the fabrications, the skewed perspectives which has led to the telling of misinformation and lies. And of course, with that, then came the withdrawal from the royal family. I am not able to control you directly, therefore I will control you indirectly and withdraw from you so that I create the idea that I am in control. She didn't do this consciously. This occurred through the unconscious narcissism. In effect, it accorded with the principle of flecteris and aqueo, superos acherontum vivo. If I cannot move heaven, I will raise hell. If I can't make you do what I want, I will create an alternative world where I reign supreme. And that is what she did. She couldn't move the edifice that was the royal family, the institution of the British royal family, and therefore she had to smear, triangulate, and withdraw. She created the alternative world, heading across the ocean first to Canada, as I predicted, and then to California, as I predicted many moons ago. In so doing, she has cocked a snook at the royal family, but evidencing the usual hypocrisy of the narcissist, says, I don't want anything to do with you, because that is in essence my way of controlling you. But thank you very much, I'll acquire the character trait of a royal title, and I'll keep using it. Of course, many people see this hypocrisy, and they don't like it. They don't like the behaviour of saying, I don't want to be part of you, but I'll still acquire a benefit from you. You either have one or the other. If you want the title, stick with the family, do your duty. Or, if you don't want to be, drop the title and enjoy life on Civvy Street. But of course, like any narcissist, it's time to have that cake and eat it. And therefore the issue of the title is hugely important to Harry's wife. It provides leverage, and of course, particularly in the United States, where naturally not everybody, but there's a significant proportion of the population that have a fascination with the royal family and titles, and therefore attribute particular esteem to the fact that she has the title of Duchess. It's special, it's exciting, it's interesting. She, of course, utilises this for the assertion of control, facade management, and the acquisition of residual benefits by merchandising the title. What then were it to be removed? This would cause massive wounding. Not only would it be an act which would threaten control, one over which she has no control, not at least in terms of directly, it would also smash her her pillar of status, and cause that to come tumbling to the ground. This would have a significantly deleterious effect upon her. It wouldn't lead to a total collapse, because the other pillars that exist within her, as set out and explained in my book Revenge, would remain intact, but the status one would come tumbling down with this act. This would cause massive wounding to her. Of course, her narcissism would dictate that she must fight back against it, and that would result in her not asserting control directly. She's not going to contact Queen Elizabeth and say, oh, please, pretty please, give me my title back. I'm ever so sorry. I will change, I promise. That isn't going to happen. Not least because the Queen probably wouldn't entertain any such approach from her, but moreover, it's likely that Harry's wife's narcissism wouldn't take her down that route anyway. It would perceive unconsciously that it would be too risky and therefore wouldn't proceed with it. No, instead, the response would be an almighty smearing, the galvanising of a massive PR campaign, broadcasts, interviews, saying, this is just another instance of the institutional racism that I have experienced. Look how horrible they are, taking the title away, stripping it from us. And look, they've done it also to our poor 2 young children who are entirely innocent in all of this. Whilst the act is a justified one, whilst the act would of course cause massive wounding and would certainly put Harry's wife in her place, the risk factor for the royal family is that in so doing, it would naturally wound her and would mean that she would need to nullify that threat to control. And she would do so by smearing the royal family, by an indirect pity play, appealing to everybody else. Look, this is just awful how I've been treated. This is just a further example. Of course, she's blind to the fact that she's brought it on herself. If she'd kept her mouth shut, if she had behaved, if she hadn't lashed out with the untruth that she has, then the Queen wouldn't be motivated to behave this way. The Queen has exhibited considerable patience with the gruesome twosome. Part of this, of course, is born out of her love for her grandson. But also, she has to balance the fact of being Queen with being grandma. And she has a role and a duty that she has discharged better than anybody else over the nigh on 70 years that she has been on the throne. She, better than anybody else, understands what duty means. And therefore, she has exhibited considerable patience, because it would be an easier route to defend her institution to say, you have offended the institution, you are not worthy of the titles that have been bestowed upon you, and therefore they are being removed from you. This isn't done as an act of punishment. The Queen wouldn't operate that way, but rather in terms of those titles are bestowed upon you on the basis of respect and earning them, and you've demonstrated that you're not fit to have them. And since you're not fit to have them, they are removed. This isn't some petty indulgence of the Queen saying, oh, you didn't come to my birthday party, so I'm going to strip you of your titles. That would be, of course, the response of a monarch that was a narcissist, and we have plenty of examples of those through history. No, the Queen's response would be measured. It would be based upon the conduct of Harry and his wife. You have belittled the institution. Your repeated disclosures, smearing, public outcries, much of which is inaccurate and hypocritical, and even where it's justified, then in those circumstances it would be better to have dealt with it privately. You have not conducted yourself in a way that fits with the titles that have been bestowed upon you. Of course, this would also lead to a certain other member of the royal family who would ought to be scrutinised, namely Prince Andrew, because he has certainly engaged in behaviour which would be viewed as unbecoming somebody of the status that has been afforded to him. And it might be the case that the Queen recognises that if she were to strip Harry and his wife of titles, with justification, she would then have to be moved to do the similar with regard to Prince Andrew, otherwise she would face similar accusations of hypocrisy. She would not act through pettiness, and also there remains the point that the Queen may well recognise and has been advised that there will be a significant backlash from Harry's wife in the usual style of the PR that we've become accustomed to, and therefore it would not be advantageous to do it. Satisfying? Absolutely. Deserved? Undoubtedly. But is it worth the risk? The answer is likely to be no. Whilst it would threaten that control, the response to that threat to control would be the smearing, the pity plays, a galvanised PR action, which could blow up in the royal family's face. Many people would support the act, but there'd be those that would be wavering and thinking it would be seen as petty. And therefore, there's an alternative route that would be available. The Express article explains, Ingrid Seward, royal expert, believes Her Majesty would rather ignore them than give them more ammunition to criticise the monarchy. And that assessment is accurate. Miss Seward told express.co.uk, I don't think removing the titles would make much difference, and it would look very petty. I also don't think it is something the Queen would want to do at this stage of her reign. It would be far more insulting just to ignore them. She's got that right. And as you all know, what is the most effective thing that you can ever do towards our kind? Ignore us. Implement and maintain no contact. We absolutely hate it. And therefore, the Queen, turning the other cheek, showing the class by which she has always operated, has nothing to do with them, or very little. That would be far more effective. It would also be legitimate. Stripping the title would be viewed as an act of pettiness, even though it's not. But ignoring them, or having very little to do with them, sits with their status. She would interact with them as members of the family as grandma and grandma-in-law. But beyond that, you don't get to come to the events because you're not involved in the royal family anymore as working royals. You don't get to come to the balcony. You don't attend these engagements because that's not your role. Yes, you can pop round for Christmas for a knees up as a family, but anything that's got a royal connotation, you are no longer involved with. That was your choice. You chose to step down. Of course, there would be the usual complaints about, we've been ostracised, we've been cut off. But that will not wash anywhere near as much as the pity plays that would be generated if the titles were stripped. It would be a far better use by implementing a near total no contact regime. And it would be entirely consistent with the position that they're no longer working royals, that they're not senior members of the royal family through their own choice. Only the mind-numbingly stupid shuggers will be the ones which continue to see such an act as unfair. Everybody else would say, makes sense. You step down, you're not going to get the invitations. You don't want to be a working royal, therefore you're not going to come to the engagements. You are effectively royal persona non grata. That would wound. That would hurt. That would have the wailing and gnashing of teeth of Harry's wife. And of course she would try and fight back against it, complaining to all and sundry, doling out the pity plays, continuing the smearing. But that would be less effective, because most people would see that their lack of involvement would be justified. The article continues. Back in January, the Queen stripped Harry's wife and Harry of their HRH titles after they officially cut ties with the monarchy. This means Harry no longer holds his military titles, including the Royal Marines, RAF Honington, Royal Navy small ships, and diving. He is also no longer the patron of England rugby. Harry's wife also lost her patronages with the Royal National Theatre and the Association of Commonwealth Universities. In a statement, Buckingham Palace said at the time, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have confirmed to Her Majesty the Queen that they will not be returning as working members of the royal family. Following conversations with the Duke, the Queen has written confirming that in stepping away from the work of the royal family, it is not possible to continue with the responsibilities and duties that come with a life of public service. The honorary military appointments and royal patronages held by the Duke and Duchess will therefore be returned to Her Majesty, before being redistributed among working members of the royal family. While all are saddened by their decision, the Duke and Duchess remain much-loved members of the family. A balanced response, and a sensible one. A spokesperson for the couple said, as evidenced by their work over the past year, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex remain committed to their duty and service to the United Kingdom, really, by moving to another country, and around the world. Don't seem to be going around it much, other than issuing diktats about it, and have offered their continued support to the organisations they have represented regardless of official role. We can all live a life of service. Service is universal. And of course, that was an attempt to fight back to the threat that was posed by the statement that was issued by the Queen. The better route in all of this would be for the other members of the royal family to remain distant, that there be no invitations to the relevant events, that they have no special status afforded to them. They want to live on Civvy Street, let them. And therefore, by ignoring the temper tantrums, by ignoring the puff piece PR activity, all of that is far more effective in getting to the narcissist. By stripping them of the titles, as I've explained, it's justified, it's merited, and it would be satisfying, and it would have a significant effect upon Harry's wife. But the backlash, both in terms of what she would do and also public opinion, is not a risk that's worth taking. And therefore, the better route is to say to them, you don't want to be part of us, then you're not. Ta-ra for now. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.